I don't
Yeah,
know.
I should be good. We're
Oh,
good.
perfect. Okay, excellent. Well, we'll just dive right in then. We'll just by way of introduction, my name is Rachel Henry. I am a former high school math teacher. I taught down in Dallas Independent School District. So I'm originally from the South. And yeah, the cold weather, wow, it's been brutal. Of course, I survived, I guess, was that 2 winters ago when it was so bad, but we weren't living through a pandemic at the same time like we are now. So wow, it's been quite a year. My most recent job prior to joining EVERFI was I was a financial aid counselor up at Cornell College, and so have a super big passion for financial literacy. I was also really excited about the work that EVERFI was doing in K-12 schools. And so yeah, I've been a part of the team now for 2.5 years. And a lot of people do know us from financial literacy, which is what we first started with at the high school level 13 years ago. But we have expanded a lot. We have like 28 new programs now, and you're going to be able to sort of see the whole spread. Works really great with the work that I know that you all do as counselors to support students. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to take away maybe a couple of resources that can really meet the needs of your students immediately this year. And then of course for, planning for next year, it'll be a great way to tee that up. And so this will be kind of partly me sharing the resources, going in and demoing. I'm going to demo the mental wellness basics resource for you because I know that's been our most requested resource throughout the pandemic, understandably. And then what we'll do is we'll turn it over to you all to make sure that you can get access and know how to actually go in and create your account, create classes, and basically you'll leave with everything you need to get started. And so really you're going to be hopefully leaving with hours of curriculum. So just diving again, like I said, right in, but I will make sure to keep an eye on if any participants are in the waiting room as we're working on this. So I always like to start with this slide because this is the problem set. This is the problem set that we are dealing with, and this is really this is why EVERFI exists. And so just to pull a couple of these stats out, if you look in the middle of the top middle of the page, we have worldwide 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health issue in any given year. Over on the far right, we have 1 in 3 children are cyberbullied, and 70% of children say they have cyberbullied someone online. And then if we look maybe even to the far left at the top, we have 4 in 10 US consumers reported that they had trouble paying at least one bill or expense in the past year. So lots of challenges that we're seeing both here in the United States and also globally. And we know that these, do impact our students and the students that you work with. And so really our goal is to provide solutions to that. And so we're essentially your partner in whole child learning. What the resources we offer are online digital supplemental resources. And when I say supplemental, I'm talking anywhere from, an hour to 3 hours of online content that students would be going through individually. So they would be going through it on their own device. There would be audio that they would be experiencing. There would be automatically graded pre and post assessments, which is of course really nice on your end because you're going to be able to track progress throughout the course and also know if there's any places that students may need some reteaching. And then also students are getting that feedback, which is I know they really appreciate. And then also you have local support. So within kind of our business model, which is our sponsorship model, we work with public and private partners that fund these resources. This is why they're always free. And you get both the resources, but also the implementation support. So, and that's myself to make sure that this is a light lift for you and that you have a good experience with these programs and so do your students. So we appreciate any feedback that either affirms that this was helpful or of course that feedback that in ways that we can improve because we're always going back to the drawing board to update these programs. So to kind of give you the full spread of everything that we have, here are the 28. Actually, I think there's only 27 programs here, but we will be adding some more at the end of this semester, so stay tuned. Always adding new ones. I highlighted in yellow the ones that I thought might be most relevant for secondary counselors, but anything you see is going to be accessible. So really the way to kind of read this chart is if you look at the top, the different colors are the different topic areas, or what we call verticals. And then if you go, like, for example, in financial education on the far left, as you're reading down, you'll see that you have your kind of elementary specific resources all the way down to your secondary resources. And so what I have highlighted in financial education, of course, is the EVERFI financial literacy resource, which has been around for forever now as we've been an organization. It just got a recent update last year, so it's really exciting. It's also available in Spanish now, so we're really trying to build out those language capabilities. But then I also highlighted its counterpart, which is Future Smart in the middle school, and that one's both financial education related as well as careers related. So those are the two that I'm going to highlight from there. And then when I jumped over to health and wellness, mental wellness basics, which is the one that I'm going to be demoing for you all, and then vaping, Know the Truth, just came out in December. We're super excited about this. This is really our, like, honestly, our top requested course from the last 2 years. And so we've had, I want to say, almost 30 schools in Iowa try it out, and it's only been released since the beginning of December. So we're excited to see those numbers continue to grow and get feedback on how that's been useful for districts. And then finally, just kind of skipping over to the very far right, we have the diversity, equity, and inclusion row there. And I wanted to highlight our 306 Black History curriculum, especially, it is, of course, February's Black History Month, but really year round, because we know Black history is US history. Those resources could be great additions to your DEI curriculum, and I'll be highlighting those. You will get a copy, I should say, of this deck, so don't worry, you'll be able to access all this information. And like I said, any program you see here will be available on your teacher dashboard to add, to review, to go through. I also wanted to give just high-level information over kind of the usage across the state last year. So last year we had 440 schools participate, with almost 50,000 students taking one or more of the programs. So that's a unique number. And then also 733 teachers implement. We're excited to really have seen this grow year over year, and we quite frankly have some educators here in the state of Iowa that have used that original high school financial literacy curriculum for upwards of 7, 8, 9 years. So again, super excited to see that has just been so valuable year over year. We are aligned, of course, to both the Iowa core as well as some of the national frameworks you see here. CASEL SEL framework, of course, comes top of mind as we're talking about mental health and vaping and those sorts of things, as well as, of course, the national health education standards. And then finally, I also wanted to list some of the logos. Again, we are funded by public and private partners, and that's both on a nationally, but also here locally. So in Iowa specifically, we have Iowa Insurance Division, who sponsors statewide the EVERFI financial literacy for high school students, and then Unity Point Health, who sponsors both the mental health and the prescription drug safety programs too for the state of Iowa. And then, of course, we have all of our national partners that are just really terrific to work with. And so you'll see their logos on the various programs, so you know who is funding those resources. So like I said, I kind of want to, well, let me kind of scroll back. I want to first take you through health and wellness. We'll skip to the middle, then look at financial education, then DEI, highlighting these resources real quick. So let me go ahead and go back. So starting with health and wellness and mental wellness basics, like I had mentioned, these are supplemental resources. So we're talking an hour to 3 hours of online content. So mental wellness is a little bit on the shorter side, so it's about an hour. And really the hope is that these are just like a springboard for more conversations with your students. So in addition to the online modules, you're also going to get discussion guides, you're going to get extension activities. This is all built into your teacher dashboard, pre-made for you. So you're not having to hunt, for free resources online. We've curated all of these for you to really pick and choose and, to implement. So specifically with mental wellness basics, I'm going to jump to our next slide. We work with subject matter experts our product team does, I should say, to build out our programs. So these were the two, what we call SMEs, or subject matter experts. So Victor Schwartz, MD, he is a APA accredited psychiatrist and the medical director at the JED Foundation. And then Ross Zabot is the former director of outreach for National Mental Health Awareness Campaign. So it's wonderful to work with these two experts. And what we did is we outlined these 4 lessons. So these are the 4 online modules that students would go through. The first is, of course, an introduction to mental health. We want to make sure we start with the basics, that we define mental health. And then in the second lesson, we're going to explain mental illness, and then also what we know about brain science behind cognitive, behavioral, and emotional symptoms. So tying this all to what we know about neurology. And then the last 2 lessons are going to be very much your practical steps. So we're talking, your coping strategies, as well as how do you know when you need to seek additional help, both for yourself, but also for a loved one. So if you can recognize when a loved one is going through a mental health challenge, and then what would be the next steps to helping them, which we know is, of course, very sensitive. So we take students through those examples. And then finally, I should say, our hope is that this would really lead to population level change or awareness. And so, of course, that starts with the student, but then builds out to parents, friends, peers, siblings, teachers, anyone that the student comes in contact with. So really, we kind of think about our resources, especially for health, as kind of the tier 1 population-wide. But this also, resources can be used for tier 2 or tier 3 too. So it can be used in smaller groups or with individual students. There's lots of flexibility in terms of how you may choose to implement. So like I said, I wanted to show you what this would look like if students were to click that start button on Mental Wellness Basics. So can y'all see where it says welcome to Mental Wellness Basics? Okay. Great. So there's going to be some audio with this. So hopefully y'all can hear that. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the screen, see if we can pull up that audio for you.
This course is all about you. No matter who you are or what you may be going through, this course will help you understand what you can do to support your own health and wellness, and how to help and care for others. We all manage stress, emotions, and relationships differently, and we all need help sometimes to feel our best. Taking care of your mental health needs, regardless of what anyone else thinks, is the most important thing you can do. As you take this course, you may hear some situations that can be hard to think about. If you feel like you need more information, click on the info button below for resources. No matter what you're going through, it's always good to find a trusted adult to talk to. Remember, you are not alone. You are enough, and you are worthy.
Hopefully y'all could hear that. Awesome. So that's the intro. We, explain the purpose behind the course. And then we explain that, this course is dedicated to our good friend Todd, who demanded more of us, and we are better for it. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, speak your truth no matter what. So here students can learn more about Todd, or they can start the survey. The survey is, I should say, completely optional and is completely anonymous. So the survey is different from the pre and post questions that we ask, because it comes at the very beginning of the program and then at the very end. And what we're interested in understanding is what students think and believe, what their attitudes are and behaviors on this topic, and then what they are after the course. And what we do is we look at that from actually aggregate that all nationally and look at that data. So again, this is never tied back to the student, to yourself, to the district, or anything like that. And again, if students are ever concerned about that, they can just skip it. So that's the first thing that they will do. And then what I wanted to do, there's the 4 modules that I highlighted. I'm going to take you through a couple of the activities with healthy coping skills, which is the 3rd module. So jumping over to that module, you can see here the titles at the bottom. Each of these modules starts off with a video, like a short 2-minute video. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this. It says, "What does mental health mean to you?"
To me, mental health was always about other people with problems. I never had to think about mental health stuff. I've seen celebrities talk about their anxiety, but I never really knew anyone going through that. Then I moved from middle school to high school. I was taking all honors classes, and it felt like my parents expected so much from me, and I expected a lot for myself. I'm pretty shy and usually keep to myself. And even though it wasn't easy, I joined 3 clubs so I could put them on my college applications. I felt like I needed to do whatever it took to be the best. On top of that, it was hard to make friends. Social media was so bad. Some people said mean things, and I felt like I was being left out. I tried not to let it bother me, but it did. I worked really hard on my grades, but I was nervous all the time and worried I wasn't doing as well as I should. I felt tense and got stomach aches before every test and such bad headaches. My favorite teacher ran one of the clubs and noticed I was having a hard time. He taught me about mindfulness and meditation and helped me balance my time a little better. People look up to me and I don't want to let them down, but now I know not to put too much pressure on myself. Talking to him made me realize that doing your best doesn't always mean being the best. I have to live my life for me. Now I stop and focus on who I am, what makes me proud of myself, and what matters to me. It really helps to do things I like music. I'm less nervous now that I have ways to cope, and realize that everyone needs help once in a while.
So there is an accessibility feature here where students can click the little bubble and get closed caption. So just know that we have those built into all of our programs as well. And then what students will do after they go through that little intro video is they'll take, of course, their pre-assessment. So this will be 5 questions. You as the instructor would get the grades, so you would know that they have completed this and also what they scored. And then from there, we have students do some self-reflection. So this question says, before we get started, what do you think? What do you think when you experience stress? Or what do you do when you experience stress? List 3 strategies that you use to deal with stress or difficult situations by typing one word or phrase at a time and then hitting enter. And then we also explain that these, are going to be anonymous and not stored anywhere. So I may, for example, put in, I might worry if I get stressed, or I might talk to a friend, or I might sleep, just as some examples. And so students can type whatever they want in there, and then they'll get this.
Thanks for sharing. Would you describe these strategies as positive or negative? Drag each to one of the boxes below.
So then they're doing their own self-evaluation here of what they would categorize them as being. And so, I'm going to go ahead and just take some, I don't know, maybe that's what I think. So again, getting students focused into that, are used to that self-reflection. And then one of the activities that they'll do during the healthy coping module is they're going to go over the cycles of negative self-talk, being able to identify different negative self-talks and how they can redirect that to positive self-talk. So this one right here says, your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are connected to each other. When you have an unkind thought, for example, that can lead to an unkind emotion or behavior. This creates a cycle. Depending on the choices you make, you can create either positive or negative cycles. And so we're going to look and see how a negative cycle could happen.
The way you talk to yourself, or self-talk, can be kind or unkind. Thoughts influence your emotions and how you act. For example, when something disappointing happens, you can think of it as devastating and blame yourself, or you can think of it as a new opportunity and forgive yourself. It's all in how you think about it.
And then students will just click the next arrow.
Your behaviors, or the actions you take every day, are often influenced by your thoughts and emotions. In a negative cycle, unkind thoughts can lead to behaviors that may feel good in the moment, but may have a negative impact on your mental health. For example, when you think of something as devastating, you may choose to isolate yourself. In a negative cycle, an unkind thought or behavior can lead to unkind emotions. Emotions can also cause unkind thoughts. For example, if you think of something as devastating and then choose to isolate yourself, that may cause you to feel lonely or sad. This keeps a negative cycle going. Many thoughts support how you feel, but they may not always be true. Self-talk is what you say to yourself. When you tell yourself kind things, it creates a positive cycle. But when your self-talk is unkind, it creates a negative cycle. Both types of self-talk are natural to have. There are different kinds of self-talk. In this activity, read the thought and choose what type of self-talk it might be to see how the thought can be reframed to create a positive cycle.
So during this activity, they're going to see various examples, and we'll go through one as an example here.
What type of unkind self-talk is this person having? Select the option that describes this type of self-talk.
So we have the little thought bubble over on the left that says, I always mess up, I can't do anything right. And so students have the options of all or nothing thinking, fortune telling, or catastrophizing, if I'm saying that correctly. And for here, it's going to be the all or nothing thinking. So once they select that, then they'll get feedback. And then if they select the wrong answer, they'll also get some feedback on that.
Telling yourself you always mess up is an example of all or nothing thinking, because it assumes something is either always true or never true. To reframe this thought, ask yourself if it's true and if it will always be true. Making mistakes is okay, especially when you're still learning. The thought here was reframed, and there are other ways to reframe the thought too.
And then we'll give other examples that students will go through. And then finally, at the end of this module, I wanted to show you that, students will be able to, get their, big check for understanding, which is that final post-assessment. So in this case, they'll go through these 10 questions. They'll get feedback on how they did, what their score was, and then you as the instructor would also see that on your teacher dashboard. So I'm actually going to click over to my sample teacher dashboard so you can check this out and what it looks like. So I'm under my reports tab, and we're going to be reviewing this in a second on all the different options here and the different features. But if I'm looking at mental wellness basics for my reports, I'm going to see that I have 3 test accounts in here. So you can see my chart. It says my first name, last name, login, and then I have my 4 module titles across the top. So introduction to mental health being the first module, all the way down to seeking help. And the one we just went through was healthy coping skills. So if that student had finished, I would see a grade in that column, but you can see some sample grades under the introduction to mental health. What's really nice is if you don't see a grade in one of these boxes, but you're curious to know if they've started that module, you can actually detail in. So you can detail into that student's account, and then you can see what their pre-assessment score is if they have a pre-assessment score. And it's also date and time stamped. So again, super helpful, especially if you have distance learners and you're trying to keep track of what they're being able to get through. All right. So that is just a sample, like I said, of kind of the experience, the student experience. But of course, every module, every program is going to be a little bit different just based on the learning objectives and the content that's covered and grade level and all of that. But that can kind of give you just a little background into what that could look like. Of course, vaping is the other one I wanted to highlight. That's, again, the one that just came out early December. Really great to add on. It's also pretty short. So we have 4 lessons, 5 to 10 minutes each. So it's even shorter, probably about 45 minutes. I will say about this program, we worked with the Truth Initiative, who's been fighting tobacco for many decades. So they were really great subject matter experts, and they partnered with us on building this out. And we really took an approach that is non-judgmental, because we understand that some students already vape, and we want to be able to meet them where they're at and then equip them with resources on how to quit, as well as, of course, preventing students who haven't vaped yet. And so that's really what this course is all about. And ultimately, it's really kind of just myth busting, as I know there's a lot of misinformation around vaping out there, as I'm sure you all do too. And so these are the four modules. First one is to know. So what are the dangers of e-cigarettes? Also Uncover, talking about what the marketing and advertising schemes were that got young people hooked. And then also Overcome, which of course is recognizing nicotine addiction and what kind of meaningful lifestyle change would have to occur for a student to overcome that addiction. And then finally Change, which is ultimately just empowering students to make those healthy decisions. So those are the short and sweet lessons, but again, they have also offline content that can go in and help build out your curriculum around vaping. Kind of, again, high level here, a couple of the financial literacy resources I wanted to touch on that have been, I think, resonating a lot with Iowa counselors and educators have been first and foremost the EVERFI financial literacy program. This is kind of, you can think about as like your core money management topics. It aligns well with the graduation requirement that's new as of this year from the state. And like I said, it's also available in Spanish. Just to highlight the 7 modules that we have here, banking basics all the way to insurance. These can be standalone modules and they can also be done all together. So just so you know kind of how that course is built. They're much shorter, about 25, 30 minutes. So this program is about 3 to 4 hours. It used to be longer. Our older version was like upwards of 6 to 8 hours, and we got a lot of feedback that was kind of too long. There was some not interactive parts, like there were some videos that weren't resonating, so we took those out, and ultimately we just made it really immersive. We made it very interactive, so you can see, for example, here is Martin's filling out, I believe this is a bank account application, a checking account, and they have to use this social security card, driver's license to fill out that information. Some more examples here. We have a phone chat with mom, or a text chat with mom and dad. We have, they're filling out here the check, and again, what Martin needs from his wallet to open an account. So hopefully super interactive, super relevant for students. And then, like I said, the counterpart to that course in the high school is Future Smart for the middle school. And so this one, I should say, like, EVERFI Financial Literacy has, a module on like how do you fill out the FAFSA form. This program is going to talk about the FAFSA because we want that to be on students' minds as they're thinking about their post-secondary education. But we're not necessarily going to get into the details of that. So this is really geared for that middle school experience. And what's really cool about this one, which is also available in Spanish, is that students play the mayor of a town. So that's a really cool narrative to it. And they get to design what they look like, name their town. And then the different modules are helping their different constituents out with their various financial challenges. So that could be things like the smart shopping module, where they're talking about budgeting and opportunity costs. They're going to talk about goal setting. There's one on entrepreneurship. And then there's one that I think works really well with, maybe with an 8th grade or 7th grade advisory, which is on investing in you, which is the one where they help a 10th grade student like pick their classes and make those decisions based on what they want to do after high school. So really getting them into that future forward mindset, if you will. So these are the 7 modules. Like I said, that investing in you module is right here, but there's, all of this really goes super well together. You can see just some of the screenshots here. We have a to-do list of what to do for, signing up for classes with the counselor, going to the activities fair, summer internship. We're building out our schedule over here with our various required courses and then our elective courses. We're, going into the counselor's office looking at college costs, and then also going through like college scholarship database, and then also some other checklists about, preparing for post-secondary education after high school. And then finally, diversity, equity, inclusion. I know I'm doing a really high overview here, but just to get you exposed to these 2 programs. Well, I guess I should say this is the full catalog we have. All of these resources are available, but I'm going to highlight the 306 resources here, specifically actually 306 continuing the story. So kind of going back real quick. 306 African American history is what we started with a few years ago, and it brings us all the way up to the civil rights movement. And what 306 does is, and this again just released on MLK Day, so it's very new, but what it does is it brings us up to the present day, and it connects the past history that we know to what's going on current day and gives us that framework and that lens. And so what I really enjoy about this course is that I hope this is very, super relevant for students. They're reading these headlines, they're reading what's going on social media, what happened over the summer with the protests, and that this would be, super engaging for them. So we're going to talk about counter storytelling. We're going to talk about untold stories, topics like Juneteenth, affirmative action, LA riots, Ferguson, how those tie together. And then there's also going to be a couple modules on Black business titans, as well as Black contributions to medicine. So again, stories that students may not be familiar with, getting them exposed to those. And then again, with all of our programs, we have offline resources that give you discussion guides to continue that conversation. And this is really that springboard. Yep, 306, continuing the story. The mission is to inform and inspire students by telling stories about the Black experience, empowering students through counter storytelling, of elevating history, and then ultimately we hope to transform students' perceptions of the world around them. All right, so that was a lot of information. Thanks for bearing with me on that. But I do want to turn it over to make sure you get access to the programs themselves. So this is just basically the new teacher registration page. I'm also going to chat it in case, Carrie, you don't have an account. And so that link I just chatted in is where you would go to sign up. And what I would recommend as you're signing up here is it does request that you add a course. And so if you're at the high school level, I would recommend that mental wellness basics. I think it's a good one to start with. And then if you're at the middle school, the Future Smart. But do know that anything that you saw, you're going to be able to get access to once you get logged in. It's pretty quick to sign up for an account. Some schools, I will say, may not be able to log in this way. You may actually be Clever integrated. So if your school uses Clever, it may not allow you to sign in, and you actually have to go through the clever.com. And we do have the Clever button on that link as well.
Rachel, I just had a question about the 306.
Of course.
So would you recommend doing the continuing the story course over the 306, just the original course? I just had some students get signed up to go through the course and they went through the general 306 course. But I was just curious which was preferred. I see that I've been able to go in and I can see the 306 material, but I had to or the continuing the story course. But I can't view the course or preview the 306 course. Is there a reason for that?
Thank you so much for mentioning that. Those are two really good questions. So I think the first one about just being able to view the 306 course, when that was developed a couple of years ago, we just didn't have the capability to go in and view that. That is something we're actually going to be updating that original 306 in the next year or so. So stay tuned and it will have a view course button. The workaround, as you can imagine, is just to create like a student demo account yourself and use your registration code to sign up. But to your other question about the two programs and how they work, what's really cool is that they can be used standalone. So you could have students go through one or the other, or you could have them go through both. They're really good complements to each other, but then they also are super informative even if you use them by themselves.
Okay, I wasn't sure if like the continuing the story made it seem like this is like the next step after you've done 306, so I just wanted to clarify there. Thank you.
Yeah, that is true. Now that I think about it when we decided on the name. But yeah, no, that's a good question. And I will say, I believe it automatically bundles together. So even if you just wanted your students to go through one or the other, they'll actually get access to both. And we did that because, we wanted them to have the ability to go through either, if they wanted to, expand upon their learning. So thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And then Carrie, were you able to get signed in?
I'm doing it on my phone right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. I just want to make sure that you're not experiencing any issues, just in case you are, because I can fix those typically on these calls.
Oh, whoops, wrong address for the school.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, once you get signed up, what's really cool is that, this is a free account. You have access to it indefinitely. And so pretty easy to get in. And then what I'll do for the rest of our time is just take us on a tour of it, so how to work it. So let me see here. I am gonna go to my own teacher account here. This is of course my demo account. And so once you get signed in, my recommendation is to go to the catalog button, not the support button, in the top left-hand corner. And then from there, you would see then everything, all the programs we've talked about. So you're going to see, featured at the top, which is, our most popular programs. We have vaping, of course, up there, as well as EVERFI financial literacy. And then as you're kind of following, we have, a section on financial education, section on social emotional learning, health and wellness, career and college readiness. And I know we didn't even talk about this, but for secondary, I do encourage you to check out Keys to Your Future. This one's all about goal setting and really getting students kind of access or more skills on kind of the soft skills of self-advocacy, negotiation, collaboration, because we know a lot of the jobs our students will have just have not been developed yet. And what I also like about Keys to Your Future is that it really takes the growth mindset to careers, knowing that our students are going to have multiple careers and multiple jobs, and that's an okay thing. So it kind of talks about the career as a journey. Then we have early learning, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm going to go ahead and add 306. And I think actually when you add 306, it automatically adds the other one too. So again, like I said, those are really bundled together. Okay, and then I'm going to scroll down. Yep, it just brought a pop-up that said it added the other 306 class. And then if you are not finding what you are looking for, and we also have a STEM section as well. But if you're not finding what you're looking for, go to the bottom and just click all available. And then you can scroll through everything that we have. All right, I'm going to pop back up to the top. I'm going to go ahead and add the vaping course too. So anything you're interested in kind of diving in further to view the course or view any of those offline resources, you would want to add to your homepage. So once you add it to your homepage, you can go back to home. And so I have everything here that I've added. And you'll see that every program has 3 buttons. It has the green Create Class button, it has the View Course button, and it has the Resources button. So in order for students to get access, they would need to go to, or you would need to go to the green Create Class button first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for Mental Wellness Basics, and you're welcome to set up a course or a class on your side as well. And you'll notice that if you're in non-Clever, meaning you're not in the Clever app, you're going to see where you're going to set up your class name. So you can call your class whatever you would like. I know for a lot of secondary teachers, they'll set up like one per section per term. So maybe like, first period health, fall semester, for example, and then have their different sections set up that way. I think for some counselors who don't necessarily have sections or rotations of students, they'll just put all students in one class, and that's totally fine. It helps with your grade book. and I'll show that in a second. So I'm just going to call this maybe my health class. And then for my start date, I'm going to just choose the month and the year. This is estimated information. So if you select March, but actually use it before February is over with, it's not a big deal at all. Class size, again, find an estimate for that. And then grade level, you can select multiple grade levels. So I'm typing it in, but you can also just select it from the dropdown and you just click back in. The reason we ask for this information is really for our back end. We're interested in general how educators and counselors are planning to use the resources, and that's why we collect that information. And then finally at the bottom, you're going to see an Add Courses button. This is a new bundling feature we added last year. So let's say, for example, you want students to go through mental wellness and you want them to go through vaping. You would just select that box. So this is super helpful. You can do this at the very beginning when you're first setting up your class, and it will preload both programs on their dashboards. Or you can save this class with just mental wellness basics and then go in and edit it and add vaping maybe later when you get to that topic. And then it will automatically update that too on the student end. So you really have, again, flexibility on how you want to roll that out. But once you've added whatever courses you want, the last step is to hit the Create button in the top right-hand corner. And again, this is for schools that are not using Clever with EVERFI. If you're just using through our platform here, you're going to take this class code and give it to students to go in and self-register on the new student registration page. And I'll go over that in a second, what that looks like. Pretty straightforward, especially for secondary students. They can usually do it in a couple minutes. We do have a way that you can add students yourself individually or upload a roster. We typically only see that like if a student, joins the school mid-term and you just want to sort of help them get started so you can create their account one-off, or like if, educators are working with like maybe third grade and under, they may upload a roster. And anytime you want to upload student account yourself, you would do that through the Students tab. And then you would click the Add Students button, and that's where you can add a single student or add multiple students. Otherwise, like I said, you're just going to take that class code, and I'm going to show you some screenshots of what that student registration process looks like. Also, if you jump over to reports, which I know I kind of already highlighted this when we were going through the demo, but I'm going to go back down to mental wellness basics. This is the screen I would have pulled up as students are starting to self-register, because you're going to see their first and last names populate literally in real time. So you can actually just keep refreshing the screen. Their information will load, and then of course you can assign like, okay, by the end of this class period, the expectation is you've completed this module. I can see your scores. And that's just, again, really nice to track. You're going to notice on the far right, you have a certified column. This is a way that students can get certified in our programs. So it defaults to no, of course, but then once they go through all the modules, if they achieve a passing score on each module, which is 70% or higher, then that they will become certified and they would be able to print a certificate on their student dashboard. And a lot of educators will just require that as their EVERFI grade. So they will have students download that certificate and then like upload it to Google Classroom or Canvas as, showing that they completed the assignment. I should also say, like if this student, I have a student here that made a 40 on Introduction to Mental Health, they could go back in and retake that assessment and they would just get like a whole new set of questions. You would see here the highest score that they made. Right, I was going to jump one more time back to courses because I did want to go over the other buttons that we have. So after you create your class and you're tracking student progress, know that you yourself can go in and take the program just like students would see, which is this View Course button. That's exactly what we've already done with Mental Wellness Basics when I was showing you the healthy coping skills lesson. You will notice, just like Cheryl mentioned, we do not have a View Course button for 306, which I think is the only program that's true for. Unfortunately, again, when we built that program out. We just didn't have that capability, but you can always, again, create a class for this and then just like set up a dummy student account essentially, and go through that program that way. But we are hoping once we rebuild it that that'll be easier for you and there'll actually be a view course button there. And then finally, I'm just going to go back down to mental wellness basics because that is what we've been focusing on here. I'm going to click on the resources button. What I love about the resources is this is kind of where anything you might think you need for the program lives here. And what I mean by that is, like, if you need access to any of the answer keys, we have those linked for you. If you just want to learn more about the course, like, you know, how many modules, learning objectives, standards alignment, that's all going to be found in the curriculum guide. And in fact, I would encourage you, if you've noticed that there's maybe 3 or 4 programs you're interested in, go in and click the curriculum guides for each of those. You can print those out. I like to print them out, mark them up. That's just how I learn best, but you can always, of course, download them, save them to your desktop. But what's really nice, again, is you get that high level information, you get the purpose behind the course flow, and then also the learning objectives and activities. It's a really nice summary document. Hopefully saves you a lot of time to find what you're looking for. And then, like I said, these online resources that we're sort of focusing on, we also have all this offline content. So I'm going to drop down here. It's called offline lessons. Excuse me. So when I load this offline lessons, this is 75 pages, which is a little overwhelming, I will admit, but we do have really nice table of contents for you. And so I'm going to zoom in, actually make this a little easier to read. This is really great, again, if you're looking for discussion questions, extension activities, anything that you may need to continue this conversation. So, like, for example, if I have students go through module 1 on just what is mental health, I can go to page 6 and grab discussion questions for that. If I want to dig into digital addiction as, you know, risk and protective factors, I can go to extension lesson 1.2 on page 14 and grab that. And that's all scripted out for you. And any additional like activity sheets or anything that you would need to execute that lesson is all built in here, which is why it's so long, why it's the 75 pages. And then you'll notice too what we've done, especially with the pandemic and knowing that students are remote. If you're looking at any of these lessons and thinking, oh, you know, did you make that activity sheet editable so that students can fill that PDF out if they're at home? We did. So that's where you see all these editable PDFs already ready for you to download. So if you, again, want to, you know, grab this from the offline lessons, you would have it available for you. All right. Oh, and I should say too, just going back here, because they did such a good job, our diversity, equity, inclusion task force put together this extension guide, anti-racism extension guide that is phenomenal. It is, again, this is all stuff that's separate from our online content, but really is meant to be just a resource hub for you. So like if any topic you're interested in, understanding privilege, allyship, this is like articles, podcasts, videos that might be interesting for you and your students to go through. It's very long. It's like 71 pages, but it's really nice. You can control find what you're looking for, and that way you have again, a curated list at your fingertips. Last thing I should mention about the teacher dashboard is if you're going through these resources and thinking, wow, I know, you know, educators in my building, in my district, maybe teacher friends, counselor friends in Iowa or other states, and you want to invite them to create an account, there's an invite a teacher button at the top right-hand corner. And this is a way for you to easily just send them a note and say, and it automatically does that for you. Hey, you know, here's a resource you might want to check out, and gives them the link on how to create a teacher account themselves. And if you were to do this and a teacher or counselor were to create a teacher account and start using one of the resources, we'll actually send you a $15 Amazon gift card. It's just a way to say thanks, because we know word of mouth is so important to getting the word out. Yeah. And we know there's a ton of of resources out there to choose from. So we do appreciate you doing that, and that's unlimited. So you can invite as many people as you want for that. All right, so that's the teacher dashboard experience. I was going to jump in, like I said, I want to show you a couple of other slides as we're wrapping up here about the student dashboard. So when students go to the new student registration page, which is just this link right here, everfi.com/register, they'll type in that code that you created when you set up your class, and then they fill out this information. Now we start with their birth date because we need to know if they're above or below the age of 13. And the reason for that is because we need to know if they can be surveyed or not. Students that are under the age of 13, due to FERPA and COPA regulations, cannot be surveyed. And so we, of course, take that very seriously, as we do all student data privacy. And so that's why they're asked that. That information is not stored. So we do not store their birth date at all. But if you ever have any questions, I know a lot of times, especially with distance learning, some parents have, had questions, completely understandably. You can always reach out to me and I can share any of our data privacy information with you. Be happy to do that. And then they just fill out their information to create their account. I would encourage them to use a username and password they're already using. Passwords are completely encrypted, and that way you're not having to reset them all the time for students. And then this is the dashboard. It's as easy as just the start button. So pretty easy to get started. And then, as you know, it's all self-directed after that. We have done the work for you to put together student start instructions. So this is an example. Again, this is a non-Clever example. So if you're not using Clever, these would be the instructions. And I also have the link to this document right here that you can just click directly in the slides. Again, trying to make this super easy for you so you're not having to reinvent the wheel on any of this. And then the last thing to highlight, just extension resources. I knew that this might be helpful. We developed a ICAP resource guide. I worked with the Department of Ed, specifically Katie, to curate this list for you. And I really wanted to make sure I got the language right, because I know it's very specific on how you upload it to the I can't remember what it's called. Career information system, maybe. And so these are resources that do align with the essential components of the ICAP. So you can grab that link again, it's going to be in the deck. And then we have a couple of scholarship opportunities for you, both EVERFI related, but also one that is not EVERFI related, but is for any Iowa high school senior. So you can find those links. I didn't mention this, but in the resources for Diversity Foundations, which is one of our diversity, equity, and inclusion resources, we do have a facilitator guide that we've put together for teachers. We've gotten a lot of questions from educators like, how do I teach this? Like, I want to make sure I have that skill set. And so definitely check out this facilitator guide. It'll be really helpful on how to implement that. And of course, I already talked to you about the anti-racism teaching guide, but it's phenomenal. Definitely check that out, bookmark that. I included best practices for remote learning. I won't spend a ton of time on this because I know we're wrapping up here, but this is essentially just best practice. I already mentioned, pulling all those curriculum guides and then maybe curating like a build your own playlist from the modules. Understandably, you may not be able to get to all the modules, but maybe you want to pick and choose from various programs. You can kind of build, use that for your unit design. And then also just some more suggestions for how to upload this to either Google Classroom or Canvas. We have some videos from my colleague Alyssa that you can check out. And then finally, we'll wrap up with questions, but as we're doing that, I do have next steps. I'm just gonna chat in this quick little feedback survey link. It should only take about a minute to fill out. So if you wouldn't mind clicking and filling that out, I appreciate it. And really the next steps is just to send students the start instructions and the class code. And just know I am here for any of your, curriculum or tech questions. I have all my contact information there. I can also virtually visit your classroom and work with your students. I've been doing that for lots of educators and counselors across the state and also over in Illinois. And so you have that information. But yeah, I would love to pause for any other thoughts or questions that may be coming up. Oh, and then let me chat in the slide deck too, so y'all have that. And you can include that with the recording.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
I love that piece that you have that connects them with the ICAP standards. I went through an entire the ICAN curriculum today.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling my husband, he's actually the superintendent. I was like, now I need to go through and figure out how every one of those lessons, where they fit into the ICAP. So that's awesome. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have to make sure I continue to update that list, because we will, like I think I mentioned that we're going to have a couple new courses out at the end of this semester. One's going to be on data science, which is really exciting for CTE. And then we're also going to have one on healthcare literacy.
Okay.
And we're hoping that one comes out over the summer. So stay tuned. We're always adding new programs. And if there's anything you don't see that you're like, oh, I wonder, would you ever consider building this out? Like, one of our requests has been like diversity, equity, inclusion for middle school specifically. And that's definitely something we've been bubbling up as, you know, potential for our product roadmap.
I feel like as you get into more of your resources and stuff, you guys just have so much stuff on there that's really good and helpful. And I could even see using, I know your diversity foundations, that might even be good for some of our teachers to take and do. So yeah, I think the 306 resources are helpful too. So
I love that. And thank you for mentioning that, because we absolutely recommend, especially for any of our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, for the facilitator, be it, you know, counselor, educator, whoever's going through it, to go ahead and just take that, familiarize themselves. And of course, that's going to just lead to better discussions too. So, but yeah, if there's any other questions about, you know, that content, we're here to support with that, because we know that there's been a lot of PD requests just around, you know, that kind of work for faculty, and we recognize that.
We just had a virtual presentation on Friday for our entire middle school, high school from NAMI. If you guys have worked with them, National Alliance on Mental Illness. And that was really, really good.
That's great. Was that for your faculty?
It was for everybody.
Oh, for everyone. Oh, that's great. So needed. Wow.
Yep. We had everybody just stay in their second period class with their teacher. So they were kind of small groups, and teachers just put it up on their board. And so everybody was watching at the same time and hearing the same message. So it was good.
very cool.
That's great. I'm so glad. I know that's,
yeah, this mental health wellness thing is like just a great next step for us. So
yeah. And to your point about just making sure every student gets access, you know, normally we recommend like a grade level placement for our programs. Except this year we've just gotten several principals have asked us, can we implement mental wellness for every student? Because like we just need it right now. And you know, absolutely, like we understand when you're in an emergency crisis situation, we just have to pull out all the stops. And so yeah, we've had several school districts that have made that decision.
Yeah, I definitely see us doing that, especially like I said, as a follow-up to what we did on Friday. So that's wonderful.
Very good.
All right.
That's great.
Well,
I'll go ahead and stop sharing there.
Yeah, I appreciate your time today, and sorry for me coming in late and being double booked, you know, it happens sometimes, so.
Yeah,
but thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being willing to present, and I will see you back here on Thursday for elementary, but thanks, Carrie, for attending.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and this will be, Cheryl, available, you had mentioned on was it your YouTube page?
Yes. Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, and feel free to link the deck too if that's helpful too, and people can just grab what they need there. And it has, what's nice is like all the links are there that I know I was chatting in. So
yeah, for sure. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, y'all have a great night. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.